wage in this country. We bring down the billions spent on tax credits and in-work benefits like housing benefit. 93% of new claimants, after all, are people in work. It's also good for the economy. Because whilst the rich get a tax cut, they just get the extra money and put it in the Cayman Islands somewhere. When the poor get extra money in their pockets, they spend it. And the other point, unemployment. We are spending billions of pounds on the fact so many people are looking for work that doesn't exist. And that is why we need an industrial strategy like they've had in Germany, creating hundreds of thousands of renewable energy jobs, taking on the environmental crisis and taking on the jobs crisis too. Tax justice. Now, we hear every single day about benefit fraud, about people with giraffes claiming benefits, as Mark so eloquently put. But I'll be honest, benefit fraud exists. According to the government's own figures, about £1.2 billion a year, less than 1% of welfare spending. Compare that to £25 billion avoided in tax by the people at the top refusing to pay their taxes, like Amazon, like Google, like Sir Philip Green, who owns Top Man and Topshop. Now, he actually, Tosser, someone says, wow, not all of you heard, you have it now. Now, Sir Philip Green, he has registered his company under his wife's name in Monaco, so he doesn't have to pay any taxes. Now, he wasn't attacked like Jimmy Carr for being morally deviant, or however Jimmy Carr was attacked. He was appointed by this government as an advisor on how to slash our public services. Friends, we need to be arguing for an all-out war against tax avoidance to force the people at the top, the booming rich, to pay their taxes. And then there's the banks. Friends, let's be honest again about what happened. We nationalised the debt and we privatised the profit. We, the people who bailed out those banks, we have no control over what they do. They're carrying on paying their bonuses. They're not lending. So we demand public control, democratic control of banks that we, the people, have bailed out, to have a public investment bank that will rebuild our economy. Now, friends, these are common sense ideas. They're not wacky. They're not deluded and off outside the mainstream. These are ideas which millions of people across this country know and understand as common sense. And that's why we just have to string them together. We have to give them a platform. Now, there's one other thing as well the People's Assembly has to do. And that's why, when I finish, the most important part of the evening will take place, and that's hearing your experiences. Because there's one thing this government's tried to do, is airbrush out of existence people's voices. They're so rarely heard in the media of actually what's going on the ground, the reality of austerity for millions of people. And if there's anything the People's Assembly can do, as well as pushing for a coherent alternative, it is to give a massive megaphone to those people who are otherwise ignored. Now, with the People's Assembly, some of you, I don't know if I'm misjudging it a bit, but some of you might have heard it at first and gone, here we go again, rolled your eyes a bit. The number of these sorts of initiatives over the years that have come crashing down. This is why this time it's different. Firstly, we've never had such a broad movement. This movement is backed by unions representing millions of private sector and public sector workers, Labour activists, the Green Party, people representing disabled people, young people, elderly people, campaigners for tax justice. And we haven't even had the mass assembly in London on June the 22nd. But I think there's something else as well. I think there's a realisation that it is unacceptable, 5 years nearly since Lehman Brothers came crashing down, that we do not have a mass movement against austerity that can push those alternatives. And that's why the point about solidarity is so important. Now, all of us, none of us in this room are going to agree on anything, on everything. We will agree on something, so we won't agree on anything. Let's just pack up and go home. No, we will agree on the essentials, I would imagine. But we won't agree on everything. And that has to be a strength in a sense. Debate and discussion should be the lifeblood of any movement. But it's as long as we remember we're on the same side. We're all acting in good faith. We all want to build that big mass movement that gives people a voice, that challenges austerity, and that can build a different Britain. I'm going to quote, it's appropriate, given we're talking there, an ex-freed slave, one of my favourite ever quotes, and that's Frederick Douglass, who's a 19th century African-American statesman and a freed slave. And he said this: "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will." And what he meant by that is the way we get change isn't through the goodwill and generosity of those above. It's the struggle and sacrifice of people from below. It's people organising, linking together, having demands which they then put forward. That's how we've always got change. And I just want to talk quickly about some quick victories that have inspired me. Last year I went to Leeds. I spoke to bin workers. They went on strike in 2009 for several weeks against the Lib Dem Tory coalition before that became all the rage. And that council wanted to cut their wages by up to a third. These are already low-paid workers. And they went on strike for 9 weeks in bitterly cold weather. They got up every day at 5 a.m. and they won. I'll give you another example. Electricians who went on strike in London against Balfour Beatty, one of the great multinational companies on earth, and they won. I'll give you another example. I talked about tax avoidance. No one was talking about tax avoidance except for people on the fringes 3 years ago. What changed? UK Uncut came along. Young people and others occupied shops and banks right across this country whose businesses weren't paying their taxes. Now everybody is talking about tax avoidance. And just one more example. Some of you won't believe I was there at the time, but the poll tax. Now I do actually remember. I know why you're all laughing. I've heard all the jokes, so get them out of your system. I was taken as a 5-year-old, thank you very much, in 1990 by my parents to the poll tax march in Glasgow. I remember it well. Me and my twin sister were given a leaflet. I actually started a chant. You think I'm precocious now, didn't know what I was chatting about. And the point is this: that movement took on Thatcher, who'd beaten all her other enemies, including the miners, and people thought, God, if the miners can't win, nobody can win. And that movement not only took out the poll tax, it helped boot Margaret Thatcher out of number 10 as well. All of these should give us hope. They show it is possible to fight back, not as a futile gesture, not to let off a bit of steam and get it off our chests, but because we can actually change things. That is our collective power. So friends, this is my plea to you, that we don't just go home at the end of this, pat ourselves on the back, we've all vented. We actually set up a local group here in Bristol that can link people together as part of a national movement against austerity, linking together disabled people, low-paid workers, public sector workers, elderly people, young people. The coalition, to coin a phrase, of people who are all in this together, except for the people at the top. And friends, I always end by saying this because I'm absolutely clear it is true, that if we stand together, we fight together, we will win this together. Thank you.